Bhagavate Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtivraheshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, today we're starting new chapter, chapter 87, the prayers of the personified Vedas. Text number 1 onwards. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshye Nirgune Gunavrittaya Katham Charanti Shruteha Sakshat Sad Asataha Pare. Shri Parikshit said, O Brahman, how can the Vedas directly describe the Supreme Absolute Truth who cannot be described in words? The Vedas are limited to describing the qualities of material nature, but the Supreme is devoid of these qualities, being transcendental to all material manifestations and their causes. So, Srila Sridhar Swami has said, before he began his commentary on this chapter, Srila Sridhar Swami said, I worship Lord Narasimha, within whose mouth resides Saraswati, the goddess of eloquence, upon whose chest reside Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and within whose heart resides Samvit, goddess of knowledge. Because this chapter, it will give plenty of philosophy, plenty. And the purports are also very, very philosophical. So we have to pay really good attention. And then further Sridhar Swami says, desiring to purify my sampradaya and being bound by duty, I'll briefly comment on the prayers of the personified Vedas to the best of my realization. Inasmuch as Srimad Bhagavatam has already been perfectly honored by my predecessor's explanation, I can only gather together the remnants of what they have honored. And similarly, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also prayed before they started their commentary on this chapter. So, at the end of the previous chapter, Shukdev Goswami had told Parikshit Maharaj, thus, O king, the personality of Godhead, who's a devotee of his own devotees, stayed for some time with his two great devotees. So as we studied, Bahulashu and Shrutadev, teaching them how perfect saints behave. Then he returned to Dwarka. In this verse, the word Sanmargam can be understood in at least three ways. In first, Sat is taken to mean devotee of the Supreme Lord, and thus Sanmargam means a path of Bhakti Yoga, devotion service. In the second, with Sat meaning a seeker of transcendental knowledge. So that means philosophical path of knowledge, which is impersonal Brahman as its object. And in the end, Sat referring to the transcendental sound of the Vedas, means a process of following Vedic injunctions. So it's really long purport. I'm not going to go through every line. So Parikshit Maharaj, in the first verse of 87th, this chapter, Parikshit Maharaj has the doubt that how the words of the Vedas can refer to absolute truth by any of the valid kinds of Shabdavritti. He asks, Katham Sakshat Charanti, how can the Vedas directly describe Brahman by Ruda Mukhya Vritti, or literal meaning based on convention? After all, the absolute is anirdesha, inaccessible to designation. Then how can the Vedas even describe Brahman? So this Parikshit Maharaj had this wonderful question, because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says Vedas mainly deal with the three modes of material nature. mainly. Now, Parikshit Maharaj, so absolute truth is beyond the three modes. So how can Vedas or words of the Vedas describe something beyond by the words which are in the three modes of material nature? So here it's not just the words, it's that are meant that are given in the Vedas. It's meaning, or we can also say it's a mercy of the Lord that is also connected with it. And that's how, just like Bhagavad Gita, we can say, oh, this is just paper and some ink and some words. If we go with English grammar, so it's only A through Z. That's all it is. So why is it considered spiritual? Paper is material, ink is material, words are material. But it is spiritual because the message is spiritual. And the person who is speaking it is spiritual. So, and with these words come the mercy of the Lord. And without being spiritualized or purified, we cannot even understand those words. So kind of a dilemma for Parikshit Maharaj. So that's why he's asking this question. Shri Shukavacha Buddhendriya Mana Prana Jananam Asrijat Prabhu Matarartham Cha Bhavartham Cha Atmanaya Kalpanaya Cha. Shukdev Goswami said, the Supreme Lord manifested the material intelligence, senses, mind, and vital layer of the living entities so that they could indulge their desires for sense gratification, take repeated births to engage in fruitive activities, become elevated in future lives, and ultimately attain liberation. But through the same material body, one can attain liberation, or one can go through repeated births and deaths. Purport. At the dawn of creation, when the conditioned living entities lay dormant within the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu, he initiated the process of creation by sending forth the coverings of intelligence, mind, and so on for the living entities' benefit. As stated here, Vishnu is the independent Lord, Prabhu, and the living entities are his jana or dependents. Thus, we should understand that the Lord creates the cosmos entirely for the living entity's sake. Compassion is a sole motive. So, in the creation, Krishna cannot be away from compassion. It's like cannot separate Krishna from compassion, being compassionate. When he kills demons, it's his compassion that he kills them, releases them of all the sins, and sends them to a higher realm, wherever they belong to. But this is his compassion, mercy. He cannot be away. So by providing the living entities with gross and subtle bodies, the Supreme Lord enables them to pursue sense gratification. And in the human form, religiosity, economic development, and liberation. In each body, the conditioned soul utilizes his senses for enjoyment. And when he comes to the human form, he must also discharge various duties assigned to him at the different stages of his life. If he faithfully discharges his duties, he earns more refined and extensive enjoyment in the future. If not, he is degraded. And when the soul eventually hankers to be freed from material life, the path of liberation is always available. So path of liberation is always available. Means it's our choice. What do we want? And accordingly, we do the activities and we get the association of devotees, association of saintly persons, so that we can make further progress. And if we don't want that, Krishna gives us association of materialistic people. So we We think we are making progress materially, but it's actually not at all a progress. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that in this verse, the repeated use of the word cha indicates the importance of all of that, all of what the Lord provides. Not only the path of liberation, but also the paths of gradual elevation through religious life and appropriate sense enjoyment. So it's all up to us. What do we want? Where do we want to go? In all their endeavors, the living entities depend on Lord's mercy for success. All the endeavors, even if it is material endeavor, it's not that I do and I get the success on my own. That's even Krishna says in the Karmannevadikaraste, Ma phaleshu kadachana. You're not the cause of the result of your activities, and do not be attached to, and you're not the creator of the result of your activities. There's nothing. You just do your activity. That's all. Without intelligence, senses, mind, and vital layer, the living entities cannot achieve anything. Even the activities one cannot do without the mercy of the Lord. Because every organ, every sense of our body, everything is controlled. We think we can speak without any sanctioning. No, it's not possible. We want to speak, whether nonsense or whether in service of Krishna. Sanctioning comes from Paramatma, and then we speak. And in fact, the movement of the lips or the movement of the tongue, after the sanctioning material modes of nature become active, Krishna is still, or Paramatma in our heart is still the controller of all the energies. Every organ, every part of our body is controlled by one demigod or the other. And even to move the tongue, we think it moves automatically. No, everything is sanctioned and everything is controlled. And then by their mercy, we can move the tongue. That's why we see so many people cannot speak, cannot move their tongues. They don't have the sanctioning from up above. So actually it is so complicated. We think it is very easy. And on top of it, even if we say something, move our tongue, now the intelligence part comes in, whether we talk intelligently or nonsensically, and then whatever the reaction we'll get, good or bad or whatever, it all depends on Krishna. So nothing, actually nothing is in our hands. We hear big speakers or scientists presenting papers, or politicians giving lots of speeches. Oh, this guy is so good, that guy is so good. They have performed so many pious activities in their previous lives. So they have come to this position, and all based on their karmas they have done and the reactions they're getting. Reactions are not in their hands, it's in the hand of Krishna, when to give what reaction to which soul. And now he or she is in this position to speak, to present the paper, give lectures, or as a talk show host do something, as a big industrialist say something, and people are following. And we think, oh, this person is so wonderful. Yes, in a sense it is wonderful because they have done some pious activities and they're reaping the results of those pious activities. And based on those pious activities, Krishna is allowing them to do something wonderful. For how long? Cannot say anything. It cannot be forever because nothing is permanent in this material world. So this is how the whole cycle, and this is a matrix actually, the matrix is involved, and we all are part of bigger matrix, and we all have our individual matrices also. So we just move in and out, back and forth, and this matrix, and it's just so complicated. But cannot happen without the mercy of the Lord. That's for sure. Nothing can happen. Without intelligence, senses, mind, and vital layer, the living entities cannot achieve anything. Neither elevation to heaven, purification through knowledge, perfection of the eightfold meditational yoga, nor pure devotion through following the process of bhakti yoga, beginning with hearing and chanting the names of God. We like to say, Mera aapki kripa se sab kaam ho raha hai. Yes, obviously. But that kripa also means kar and pa. Do and then achieve. It cannot happen that Krishna is biased towards some people for something. That his bias is making these people intelligent, others non-intelligent, making this person rich and other poor, or making this person devotee and other not. He's not at all biased. He's completely neutral. It says in Bhagavad Gita, Samoham Sarvabhuteshu. Yes, he's partial towards his devotees in the sense he wants to protect them, he wants to encourage them, he wants to support them on the path of devotional service. Yes, because as soon as somebody is favorable to Krishna and he has a desire that I want to leave this material world, go back to the spiritual world, he arranges to help that person, that soul. But other than that, he's always neutral, always. It's so difficult to understand actually. And at the same time, we see many times, all the time, devotees go through troubles, difficult situations. And we think Krishna is not there to help, but Krishna is always there to help, always. But at the same time, we have to understand, nothing can happen without his mercy and without his intervention, him or his expansions like Paramatma. Okay, then further it says, how then, if the Supreme arranges all these facilities for the conditioned soul's welfare, can he be impersonal? So far from presenting the absolute truth as ultimately impersonal, the Upanishads speak at great length about his personal qualities. The absolute described by the Upanishads is free from all inferior material qualities, yet he is omniscient, omnipotent, the master and controller of all, the universally worshipable Lord, he who awards the results of everyone's work, and the reservoir of all eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So these are his qualities. So qualities means a person. Imperson, how can he have? Like Brahm Jyoti, how can Brahm Jyoti has any qualities? But all these qualities are attributed to Krishna. So it means he has the qualities. The question Maharaj Parikshit has submitted here, namely, how can the Vedas directly refer to the absolute truth, has been answered as follows by Shukdev Goswami. The Lord created intelligence and other elements for the sake of the conditioned living beings. A skeptic may object that this answer is irrelevant. But Shukdev Goswami answer is not actually irrelevant. As Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, answer to subtle questions must often be phrased indirectly. As Lord Krishna himself says to Uddhava, the Vedas, seers, and mantras deal in esoteric terms, and I'm also pleased by such confidential descriptions. So Srila Shukdev Goswami says, you say that Brahman is indescribable by words, but if the Supreme Lord had not created the intelligence, mind, and senses, then sound and the other objects of perception would all be just as indescribable as your Brahman. You would have been blind and deaf since birth, and you would not know anything about physical forms of sound, what to speak of the absolute. So, just as a merciful Lord has given us all faculties of perception for experiencing and describing to others the sensations of sight, sound, and so forth, in the same way, He may give someone the receptive capacity to realize Brahman. So, I know lots of philosophy is there in this chapter, and so we just got to pay attention. That's all. So everything, intelligence, mind, senses, everything comes from the Lord. So He has created the capacity to understand Brahman, the absolute, through the same material mind, intelligence. Also, it's up to us. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur suggests that the word buddhi in this verse spoken by Shukdev Goswami can indicate the Mahatattva from which evolve the various expansions of ether, such as sound, which are designated here as Indriya. So again, it's a very, very long purport. And in Krishna book, Prabhupada, he has gone through lots of descriptions or purports or commentary on this chapter, on every verse. Long commentaries. But understanding that without His mercy, nothing can happen. And with His mercy, everything is possible, even with material intelligence and senses. Of course, with our engaging in devotional service, the same material senses start getting purified. Purified means they start getting spiritualized. So we can understand the spiritual matter according to our purification. Sesha hi Upanishad Brahmi Purvesham Purvajar Grita Shraddhaya Dharyedyastam Shemam Gached Kinchana. Those who came before, even our ancient predecessors, meditated upon this same confidential knowledge of the absolute truth. Indeed, anyone who faithfully concentrates on this knowledge will become free from material attachments and attain the final goal of life. So anyone who faithfully concentrates on this knowledge, this confidential knowledge concerning the absolute truth should not be doubted, since it has been passed down through authoritative lines of learned sages since time immemorial. One who cultivates the science of the Supreme with reverence, avoiding the distractions of fruitive rituals and mental speculation, will learn to give up the false designations of material body and mundane society. And thus he will become eligible for perfection. So we'll learn to give up the false designations of material body and mundane society. And actually, more we engage in devotional service, so the spiritual practices, slowly, this attachment to mundane, everything starts going away. Sarva Upadhi Vinirmuktam. Sarva Upadhi. Upadhi means the titles or the designations. I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm man, woman. These are all designations. I'm rich, I'm poor, I went to this college, I'm alumni of this college, and I'm alumnus of that college. They are designations. We are just spirit souls. We might be in a different position, very high position materially or not so high position materially. That's a different story. That's based on our karmas. But regardless, we are just spirit souls. And just because somebody is in a high position materially doesn't mean he's spiritually evolved. It doesn't mean that. So more one makes spiritual progress, more he gets rid of all these false designations. Means he's not attached to these false designations. Might still do the service or do his duties, but he's not attached. And this is why I said, thus he will become eligible for perfection. In the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the first two verses of this chapter can be considered an Upanishad on the topic of Brahman. And now Shukdev Goswami says the same question or same topic was brought up by Narad Muni. Atate varnishyami gatham narayanan naradasya cha samvadam rishera narayanasya cha. In this connection, I will relate to you a narration concerning the Supreme Lord Narayana. It is about a conversation that once occurred between Sri Narayan Rishi and Narad Muni. So how Shukdev Goswami knows all this? Because he's a self-realized person. I don't think he was there sitting in Badrika Ashram and listening to this, but he knew there's some conversation happened. And not just some, he knows the details of it also. Ekada narado lokan paryatan bhagvat priya sanatanam rishim drashtum yayo narayana ashramam. Once while traveling among the various planets of the universe, the Lord's beloved devotee Narad went to visit the primeval sage Narayan at his ashram. So that is Narayana Rishi in Badrika ashram. Yove Bharat Varshayasmin Kshemaya Swaste Nranam Dharma Jnana Shamapetam Akalpada Sthitatastatapaha. From the very beginning of Brahma's day, Lord Narayan Rishi has been undergoing austere penances in this land of Bharat, while perfectly performing religious duties and exemplifying spiritual knowledge and self-control, all for the benefit of human beings in both this world and the next. Tatropavishtam rishibhi kalapa grama vasibhi paritam pranato aprachad idam eva kurudvaha. There Narad approached Lord Narayan Rishi, who was sitting amidst the sages of the village of Kala. After bowing down to the Lord, O hero of Kurus, Lord Narad Muni asked him the very same questions you have asked. Tasmahi avachod Bhagavan Rishinam Shanvatadam idam yo Brahmavada Urvesham Janaloka Nivasinam. As the sages listened, Lord Narayan Rishi related to Narad an ancient discussion about the absolute truth that took place among the residents of Janaloka. So Narad Muni asked Lord Narayan, and when he says, as the sages listened, so why he said the sages? It says Lord Narad Muni only. It must be the sage listened. No, it says Rishinam. So other sages must also be there. So Lord Narayan Rishi said similar discussion happened among the residents of Janaloka. So upper planetary systems, when we go Janaloka, Tapaloka, Maharloka. So Janaloka, higher planetary, one of the higher planetary systems. So the same discussion happened there. Shri Bhagwan Vacha, Swayam Bhuva Brahma Satram, Janaloke Bhavatpura, Tatrasthanam Manasanam Muninam Urdhva Retasam. The personality of Godhead said, O son of self-born Brahma, Once long ago on Janaloka, wise sages who resided there performed a great sacrifice to the absolute truth by vibrating transcendental sounds. These sages, mental sons of Brahma, were all perfect celibates. So these sages, mental sons of Brahma, means the four Kumaras, perfect celibates. So they were the four Kumaras. Srila Sridhar Swami explains that the word Satram here refers to Vedic sacrifice, in which all the participants are equally qualified to serve as priests. Shvetadvipam Gatavati Tvai Drashtum Tadishwaram Brahmavada Susamvritaha Shrutayo Yatra Sherate Tatra Hiyat Ayam Bhutat Prashanas Tvam Mam Yaman Uprachasi. At that time, you happened to be visiting the Lord on Shvetadvip, the Supreme Lord in whom the Vedas lie down to rest during the period of universal annihilation. A lively discussion arose among the sages on Janaloka as to the nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Indeed, the same question arose then that you are asking me now. Tulya Shruta Tapashilas, Tulya Sviyar Vimadhyamaha, Api Chakru Pravachanam, Ekam Shushrushvu Apare. Although these sages were all equally qualified in terms of Vedic study and austerity, and although they also friends, enemies, and neutral parties equally, they chose one of their number to be the speaker, and the rest became eager listeners. So it wasn't just like a group discussion going on. They chose one person as a speaker, and everybody became the listener so that they can understand the subject matter properly. Shri Sanandan Uvacha Swasrishtam Idam Apiya Shayanam Sashakti Tadante Bodhya Chakrus Tallinga Shrutaya Param Yatha Shayanam Samrajam Vandenas Tat Parakrama Pratyushe Abhetya Shishlokar Bodhyanti Anujivina. Shri Sanandan said, so there are four Kumaras, Sanat Kumar, Sanandan, I'm forgetting the other two, Sanat Kumar, Sanandan, somehow it's not coming to my mind. Sanat, Sanandan, and one more. At the time of creation, the Vedas are the first. Somebody got muted. The Vedas are the first emanation from the breathing of Lord Mahavishnu, and in personified form, they serve him by waking him from his mystic sleep. This statement made by Sanandan implies that Sanak and other sages had asked him the same question that Narad had asked Narayana Rishi, and Maharaj Parikshit had asked Shukdev Goswami. Sanandan refers to the question back to the example of personified Vedas themselves in their address to Lord Mahavishnu. Even though the Vedas knew that the Lord, being omniscient, does not need to be informed of his glories, they enthusiastically took this opportunity to praise him. So when the Lord wakes up, Lord Mahavishnu wakes up from his mystic sleep, he's in Yog Nidra, but sometimes he wakes up. So the Vedas in the personified form, they are glorifying the Lord at that time, so that he wakes up to the nice sound. So not that he had to wake up and look at his Facebook and WhatsApp messages. So the Vedas are there. Shri Shrutaya Uchuhu. So Shruti, Vedas also means the Shruti. Shri Shutra Uchu. Jaya 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 Jam Jit Dosha Gribhita Gunam. Tvamasi Yadatmana Sam avaruddha samasta bhaga. Agaj gadok sam akhil shakteva bodhakate. Kvachit jayatmana chacharato anuchare nigamaha. The Shrutis said, the Vedas, victory, victory to you, O unconquerable one. By your very nature, you are perfectly full in all opulences. Therefore, please defeat the eternal power of illusion, who assumes control over the material modes of nature to create difficulties for conditioned souls. O you who awaken all the energies of the moving and non-moving embodied beings, sometimes the Vedas can recognize you as you sport with your material and spiritual potencies. So according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the 28 verses of the prayers, so from this text 14 to 41, represent the opinions of each of the 28 major Shrutis. These chief Upanishads and other Shrutis concern themselves with various approaches to the absolute truth. And among them, those Shrutis are supreme, which emphasize pure, unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Upanishads direct our attention to the personality of Godhead by first negating what is distinct from him and then defining some of the important characteristics. So Vedas doesn't mean only the 4 Vedas. Vedas means knowledge. So here, Upanishads are all they all are personified. They're not just the books. They have personalities. And that is why these 4 Vedas or all these Upanishads or the scriptures, in the end, they'll also pray to Krishna that we want to have a relationship with you as gopis. So they became Vedachari gopis. And that is why either these 4 Vedas, Upanishads, and corollaries, and other scriptures, they might be unmanifested from us at the moment in the book form, but they can be manifested when we are ready. So we have to be qualified for them to be manifested. We can say, oh, this Muslim ruler burned down the library here at Takshila, Nalanda universities, and this and that. So it could be that we were not qualified. So they decided to disappear. And they can reappear if we are qualified. They can manifest themselves. So these are not just merely books with some paper and printing ink. No. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur interprets the first words of this prayer, Jaya Jaya, to mean, please reveal your super excellence. The word Jaya is repeated out of either reverence or joy. The Lord might ask, how shall I reveal my excellence? The Shrutis answer by requesting him to mercifully destroy the ignorance of all living beings and attract them to his lotus feet. The Lord says, but Maya, who imposes ignorance on the jivas, is full of good qualities. Why should I oppose her? Yes, the Vedas say, but she has taken on the 3 modes of nature to bewilder the conditioned souls and make them falsely identify with the material bodies. Her mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, moreover, are tainted because we are not manifest in their presence. So only you cannot be conquered by Maya, whereas others like Brahma are defeated by their own faults. Lord responds, but what proof do you have that she cannot conquer me? The proof lies in the fact that in your original state, you have already realized the perfection of all opulences. So again, as I said, long purport. So the Shrutis are waking him up and pleading to him, please remove this covering of ignorance from all the living entities. Because Shrutis or this knowledge comes from Krishna, and as it is explained earlier, Krishna or Lord Mahavishnu also same thing. They're just made of compassion. They're full of compassion, and this is why they give us all these scriptures so that we can follow the instructions and try to go back to Godhead, especially the Upanishads. But even the Vedas say, without your mercy, we cannot do anything. Even the Shrutis are saying. So you have to give your mercy on all these fallen, conditioned souls. Brihad upalabdham etad avyanti avasheshataya yad yat udyastamayo vikrater mridi va vikritam atarishyo dadhustvayi mano vachana charitam katham yatha bhavanti bhuvi tat padani nranam. This perceivable world is identified with the Supreme because the Supreme Brahman is the ultimate foundation of all existence. Remaining unchanged as all created things are generated from it and at last dissolved into it. Just as clay remains unchanged by the products made from it and again merged with it. Thus it is toward you alone that the Vedic sages direct all their thoughts, words, and acts. After all, how can the footsteps of men fail to touch the earth on which they live? So, there may be some doubt as to whether the Vedic mantras are unanimous in identifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, they are. The Vedas themselves explain this verse that there can be only one source of universal creation called Brahman or Brihat, the greatest, which is a singular truth underlying the pervading all existence. No finite deity like Indra or Agni can fulfill this unique role, nor would the Shrutis be so ignorant as to propose such an idea. So everything comes from Lord Vishnu or from Krishna, and Krishna's expansion is Vishnu. So in the material creation, everything comes from Lord Vishnu. That's as I explained earlier also in Shiva. So this is what the Vedas or Shrutis are also saying, the same thing. The material universe is real, having Prakriti as its original ingredient and final state. Lord Mahavishnu is a resting place of nature, which becomes manifest by the power of time. Thus, nature, the Almighty Vishnu and time are not different from me, the Supreme Absolute Truth. So this is what Krishna is saying. Therefore, the mantras of the Vedas, along with the rishis who have received these mantras in meditation and transmitted them for the benefit of mankind, direct their attention primarily towards the personality of God. The Vedic sages direct the activities of the mind and words, that is to say, the inner as well as the literal meaning of their utterances. First of all, toward him, and only secondly, towards separated transformation. Again, it's lots and lots of philosophy. So Prabhupada writes the word Brahman indicates the greatest of all and the maintainer of everything. Chimpanzees are attracted by the greatness of sky, but because of their poor fund of knowledge, they're not attracted by the greatness of Krishna. In our practical life, however, we are attracted by the greatness of a person and not by the greatness of a big mountain. Thus, the term Brahman actually applies to Krishna only. He's a supreme Brahman. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna concluded that Lord Krishna is the Para-Brahman, or the supreme resting place of everything. So everything comes from Krishna only. All the varieties and all the creation that we see here comes from him, and at last dissolved into him. It doesn't mean we lose our identity. The entities, living entities, lose their identity. No. The whole material energy unmanifests and goes back into Mahavishnu, and so all the living entities also at the time of dissolution. That's all. So I guess I can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Prabhuji, this chapter is kind of loaded. If you, is it available online?
Oh yeah. The whole Bhagavatam is available.
I see.
I can send you the link.
It's a beautiful chapter. Yes, thank you. It's a beautiful chapter.
Yeah, I can post the link. It's basically Vedabase, vedabase.com.
I have Vedabase, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's in Vedabase. Everything. I always quote that Bhagavad Gita shloka from Vedabase. So in the library, you can go to Srimad Bhagavatam also.
Okay.
Yeah, it's lots and philosophy of
Yes,
chapter.
yes. Beautiful chapter though.
Yeah, but not everybody likes this kind of philosophy.
No,
I loved it.
बैठना पड़ेगा, बैठ के पढ़ के आराम से समझो तो बहुत अच्छा है. Time निकाल sit quietly and
especially अगर आप कृष्णा बुक पढ़े ना, क्योंकि उसमें प्रभुपाद ने दिया ना, उसमें थोड़ा सिंपल टर्म्स में बताया. That has its own sweetness.
I have that book also.
Yeah, तो आप उसमें पढ़ लो. ठीक है, I guess I can stop here. You all have a safe and
This is the
wonderful
best.
day.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.